Hello and welcome to today's session on hardware hacking. My name is Rob from Steam Labs, and in today's video I'm going to be introducing you to some new hardware which we have purchased from Hak5, one of which is the OMG cable. This is the Keylogger edition, and I'm also going to be introducing you to the Bash Bunny today. Now, when I talk to you about the different hardware which we have purchased, I think probably one of the most scary things is that cable which I held up, you can't really see the difference between this standard iPhone charging cable and this Keylogger cable from OMG. Now I'm going to flip my camera in a minute, but before we kind of get started, this video, as always, this is made purely for educational purposes. For those of you which are ethical hackers and penetration testers, if you don't have this Hak5 kit, and they do not sponsor this video, which is absolutely adore the kit which they have made, this is really, really useful for those of you which are going to conduct penetration testing, or for those of you that have a real interest in cybersecurity. Now, let's flip that camera and have a look at the kit. So inside the OMG and the hot plug kit from Hak5, we have got this Bash Bunny manual, and then inside this case from Hak5, we have got the USB-C to USB-C Keylogger edition of the cable. We have got a USB-C to Lightning cable. We have got the programmer, which is required for both of these cables, and we also have the Bash Bunny. Now, we have purchased lots of kit from Hak5 recently for our hardware hacking courses. We have recently sent out 7 of these kits here to our student base at Steam Labs, so we can get a better understanding of how we can use kit like this in industry if we are going to be going out for penetration testing. And also in this series of videos, I'm going to be exploring how we can use the Flipper Zero. Again, this is something new which we have purchased, and also how can we use the Raspberry Pi for hardware hacking. But without further ado, we are going to move on to how we can use the OMG to Lightning cable today, this Keylogger edition, and again, how we can also use this USB-C to USB-C cable. Now, before we move on to how you can set up the firmware and how we can write scripts for this OMG cable, let's just have a look at how scary this technology is. So at the top here, I am connected to the OMG cable, and it's appearing as an access point. So this is how we can remotely control the cable, plus the device which it is connected to. Now, inside my browser here, I'm connected to that OMG cable through this IP address, and plugged into my Asus ROG laptop is a K1 Keychron keyboard. Now, the first thing we're going to have a quick look at here is the Keylogger. So just how scary is this cable? If you don't know, it's a keylogger, and if you don't know that it's plugged into your device, I'm going to press on start keylogging, and then I'm going to type something onto my external keyboard which is plugged into my Asus ROG, and I'm going to type in JJJ and space and return, and all of these things here are being recorded inside the keylogger. So if you've plugged this cable into somebody's computer, or more worryingly, if somebody's plugged this into your computer, they can record all of your keystrokes. Now, before we move on to how to set up the firmware or how to flash the firmware on this OMG cable, what are some of the other things that we are able to do with this cable? So I'm going to drag across my GitHub window, and this is a program which I've written for my Asus ROG, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to change the wallpaper on my Asus ROG. So I'm going to load in this payload, this script which I have previously written. So just wrote this earlier today. I'm going to copy it over from GitHub, and I am going to paste it into this software. We will come to the language a little bit later in the video once we've done setup of cable, and I'll teach you how you can write scripts and where to get started. Now, what this is going to do is, if I go across to my Asus ROG, it's going to change the wallpaper of my desktop. It's going to go to the internet, it's going to open a browser, it's going to find an image, it's going to download that image, save it in my downloads, and then update my wallpaper. All through the OMG cable, which is connected to my Asus ROG and that we are controlling remotely. So I'm going to press on run, and let's see how successful this script is. So you should be able to see that the start menu should open up. It should then go to a browser. Now sometimes this is a little bit buggy and this does fail, so we can see that it is failing at the moment and it's trying to save a file right now. And don't worry too much if you're not seeing the correct output. I'll run this script again in a moment. But what it's trying to do now is change the wallpaper. So this is what this script here on my Mac is doing whilst remotely connected to this laptop. So you can see now it is trying to save the image which we have downloaded, and then in a moment we should be able to see an updated image. Now we can see that this is working. I thought this was failing a moment ago. If I minimize this notepad screen now, you'll be able to see that my wallpaper's been changed, and all I have done is plugged in my charging cable. This is just how scary this technology is, and this is fantastic for penetration testers and for those that are really interested in cybersecurity. Now what we're going to do is move on to the setup, so how do we flash the firmware on a cable and how do we start writing some scripts. In this part of the video we are going to have a look at how we can set up and flash the firmware onto our OMG cable. So I have plugged in a USB-C to USB-A into the programmer. I've made sure that on the end of my programmer it's plugged into the end which says PC. And then in the other end of my programmer, which is labeled OMG, I've plugged in my USB-C to USB-C cable from OMG. So do check that you're connecting the correct part to the programmer. Now, what you'll be able to see in front of me right now is our lesson slides for hardware hacking lesson number 1. So if you are a student at STEAM Labs, or if you're following this channel, this is the kit which we do provide to our student base who are studying hardware hacking with us. So we've got this OMG plus hot plug kit from Hack5, we've got the Wi-Fi Pineapple, and we've also got the Raspberry Pi. And what we're doing here is we're looking at how to set up the OMG cable from scratch. So here are some really useful links. So if you're not a student of mine and you are looking for some very useful scripts and also instructions on how to set it up, do check out this first link here, and these are the instructions on how to set up the firmware using command prompt or terminal. If you're not comfortable using command prompt or terminal, you do have the option to use the web flasher from Hack5. This is not the official way to set it up right now, but after talking to a couple of their tech guys recently, I do believe that this is going to be pushed out in the coming months, and this will become the standard of how you can flash the firmware onto your OMG cable. So I have tried this and it is great, but we're going to go for the standard method for today. So number 1, you need to download the latest stable firmware from the GitHub repository. Number 2, you are going to need to download these drivers, I think also on Mac as well as Windows, in order to configure and flash the firmware onto the cable. So do download this. Once you have both of those things downloaded, so this is in my documents folder, you are then going to need to open up a command prompt. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do CD, and I'm going to CD into my documents folder. I'm then going to CD into my OMG folder, and then I've got a folder inside here which is called firmware. Now originally when I downloaded this folder had a really long name just like this, so I have shortened it and called it firmware. So I'm going to CD and log into this. The other 2 things which you are going to need to have set up on your Windows operating system, if you're doing this for Windows, is you're going to need to run this command here inside command prompt and install PySerial. And the other one, which is a requirement, you're going to need to download Python 3.7 or higher in order to run this script. Now assuming that you have downloaded the firmware, installed the driver, set up PySerial in command prompt, and also installed Python, we should be good to go. And in order to flash the firmware, all we need to do is type in Python 3 and then flash.py, and that's pretty much it. Now, once we've done this, what we should be able to see is that we can see the cable which is plugged into the programmer. So we're going to select on option number 1, and we want to flash new firmware to this cable. Now, obviously do subscribe to our series of videos and you'll see me use some of these other options throughout this hardware hacking series for education. I'm going to select number 1 for now, and we want to set this up in access point mode. So what's going to happen is when I click on my Wi-Fi option down here, so to connect to Wi-Fi, the OMG cable will actually have its own SSID, and we're going to be able to connect to it using its IP address. So I'm going to select on 2 for now. I'm going to create an SSID which is called "You must subscribe. We rock." So same SSID that I had set up earlier, and a nice secure password. I know this will make everybody giggle, 1 to 8, and then we should be good to go. So this is going to take a few moments to flash the firmware to the USB-C cable, and then we should be able to connect to it. Now, for those of you which are wondering what these other links are on my slides here, so these are absolutely fantastic links. So if you are new to hardware hacking and also using gear which is set up by Hack5, do check out the Jeff Tadashi link. Lots and lots of scripts which he has written here, so you can have a look in this folder. Do check out the Hack5 GitHub page. Do have a look at all of these rubber ducky scripts here. Apologies. So this will really help you get started, so you can write different payloads. And also we have a link to our GitHub page here, and you'll be able to see some of the different scripts which we have written. Now, this is going to take a moment to flash for firmware, and we can see that this is done. So I should now be able to remove my cable, press enter, and now we can connect to it through its IP address. So back on my Mac now, I've plugged in the USB-C to USB-C cable into my Asus ROG laptop. And now that we've flashed the firmware, let's connect to that cable. So I'm going to go onto my Wi-Fi option up here, and I'm going to look for our SSID, which is "You must subscribe, we rock." And we're going to enter the password which we set up when we flashed the firmware. Now that we're connected up here, what we are going to do is we are going to log on to the IP address which is stated in the documentation of the Hack5 page. So what I'm going to do is open up that documentation, and we can see at the moment it looks like I'm trying to connect to AIS fiber, and let's just do that again. This is the wrong IP, so HTTP, and then we are doing //192.168.4.1. So if you set this up as an access point, this is how we are going to remotely connect to the cable, and then obviously control the device which is connected to that cable here. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video and at several points, I'm going to teach you how to write several scripts. So these are some excellent starter links which I kind of got started out with, but this wouldn't really be a complete video if I haven't written my own scripts here. So I'm going to talk to you about different things that I understand about the language and how you can get started writing scripts there. So a nice one to begin with today is this. Now, I'm going to quickly talk you through the language, and hopefully that will give you a basic understanding of what this is doing. So REM, so REM, this is being used to just comment different things inside this program, which you can see on GitHub here. We are adding in a delay of 1,000 milliseconds, so that's going to be 1 second. And then once we have connected remotely to our Windows laptop, we're going to use GUI-R. So that's going to bring up, and that's going to use a shortcut option, which is Windows R. And then inside Windows R, we're going to type in the program name, which is Notepad.exe. And then once we've done that, we'll press enter, delay for a second, and then what it should do is open up that Notepad file and then print out this information. So that's kind of a very quick explanation of what rem, delay, GUI, string, and enter. So this is a nice simple script. So what we're going to do is, now I am connected to my cable and that is plugged into my Asus ROG. We are going to paste it into this section of the Ducky script, and then what we're going to do is press on save. So you can save up to 8 different programs in here, one of which will boot as soon as the cable's plugged in. We're going to just go for slot 1 now. Press on save, and then what you'll be able to see on my screen is the output to that cable. So I'm going to press on run. And what you should now start seeing is the output to what is happening. So we can see that it's opening up a notepad document and it's just written this information into that file there. Now we're going to move on to that next script. So pretty scary stuff, right? But what else can we do? So going back to my GitHub page, this is a really famous one, right? So this is the Rickroll for Windows. So what that means is we are going to open up a web page, so delay, GUI-R, delay, same as what we've done before. Now, once we've typed in GUI-R and it's opened up the shortcut for Windows R, we're going to type in the browser which I'm using, which is Brave. It's then going to press enter, and then the browser is going to open, a delay of 3 seconds, and then it is going to take us to this video on YouTube. And this is the Rickroll, right? So you should be familiar with Rick Astley. Lots of people who use these OMG cables commonly demonstrate this. So we're going to do this both on the Windows operating system or my Asus ROG and also my iPad Pro. And then we're going to leave a message inside the command R which says this is pretty impressive. So let's take our script, let's go across to our program, let's delete whatever is here, and let's save this into slot 2. So we can preload and save scripts. So now that we've done that, we are going to press on run, and then what you should see appear is the window which is opening up now with Rick Astley, and then we can see a message which is appearing inside command R. So some pretty scary stuff, and just remember all we have done here is we've just plugged in what we thought was a charger to our laptop here. So obviously this video is all about security and being aware that you shouldn't plug anyone else's cable into your laptop, because this technology is not difficult to come by and these scripts are not difficult to write. Now last one here, which is going to be the iPad Pro. So again, just so you can see the different instructions here, I'm not going to run this on my iPad Pro, but it's the same thing again. So we are using rem GUI space. What we're then doing is we are typing in Brave, so that's going to search for Brave, see if it exists as an application on my iPad. And then our delay is a little bit longer here, so based on the different operating systems that you're using, sometimes you should have a longer delay, because sometimes it does take that device a little bit longer to load that application. So once we've done that, we're going to do GUI-L, and that's going to allow us to enter this URL into the section of this area. Okay, so where we typically type a URL, but on our iPad and also using Brave. And I said I wasn't going to demo it, but let's demo this and have a look at how it works. So again, some pretty scary stuff which we're seeing here. And we can see again Rick Astley, so we've just Rickrolled my iPad Pro. And then the last one we're going to have a look at today is the wallpaper hack. And I've done this, if you check out my other videos on ethical hacking, so I've demonstrated how this would be done on, like Windows, if we attack it through like a vulnerability. Again, these are all for educational purposes and just making people aware of, the security flaws in systems here. But this script is a lot more detailed. So you saw earlier in the video, what we did was we went to Google, we downloaded an image, which was "you have been hacked," a bit of a cheesy image, but sure. And then what we did is we saved the file, we then looked for the saved file, we navigated across lots of different menu options, and then we changed the wallpaper. So let's talk a little bit about this language here. And the way that I learned how to write scripts using the hardware which is provided by Hack5 is using these GitHub links which are underneath the video, so it's not that difficult. It takes some patience, takes a little bit of time, but it's quite straightforward. So again, a comment in my program, a nice delay of 5 seconds. We're doing Control Escape, and this is going to allow us to then search for this in our Windows Start menu. And then once we have done that, I've added lots of long delays in here because I found that Windows did take a little bit longer. Unfortunately, you can hear my daughter screaming. And the delays are a little bit longer just because there were quite a lot of bugs in the program and it did keep failing. And then once we had saved VMIS using Control S into our downloads folder, we then went to Control Escape, and then we searched for this again. And this is C drive, users, and Dane S, and it's looking for this in the downloads file. So as long as it's been downloaded properly, you should be able to find it in the downloads folder. And then going down these delay, tab, delay, tab, delay, tab, this is allowing us to navigate across all of the menu options. If you check out the OMG cable help menu, there's definitely going to be a more efficient way to do this by using, different selection statements. I will be demonstrating this in the videos to come, but I thought this would be a nice way to introduce a simple script using OMG. And the last thing here is we are actually changing that wallpaper. So let's again copy across the script, and we're going to save the original iPad script just into slot 3. And now that we've done that, we are going to again get rid of the script, which you can see on the screen, and let's have a look at just how this works. So save into slot 4. It would be great if there were like 30 slots. If you're going to preload stuff as a pen tester, this would be pretty useful. And then once we've done that, let's press on run and let's check it out. So what happens? So you can hear the laptop running, and this is going to search for the file which we're trying to download. Now that we have done that, it is a bit buggy sometimes. So now that we've done that, yep, got the correct file, saving the image, and then we're going to go through the different menu options, and we're going to attempt to change the wallpaper. Now, I hope that this series of videos is really helpful for those of you which are following this. Obviously, do hit me a like and subscribe. We are growing our channel. We are recording lots and lots of new exciting content on ethical hacking, hardware hacking, penetration testing. We also release videos on VEX Robotics, and we are dedicating a series of videos to also the Raspberry Pi. You'll also be able to see my Raspberry Pi mining project, where we're mining the Monero currency. Do obviously drop me a message if you have any questions about the techniques which we've demonstrated here. And if you got this far through the video, I hope this has been really helpful, and I look forward to interacting with you in our next hardware hacking video for education soon.